G'day you mob, Pete here, and this is another episode of Aussie English, the number one place for anyone and everyone wanting to learn Australian English. So today I have a Goss episode for you where I sit down with my old man, my father, Ian Smisson, and we talk about the week's news, whether locally down under here in Australia or non-locally overseas in other parts of the world. Okay, and we sometimes also talk about whatever comes to mind, right? If we can think of something interesting to share with you guys related to us or Australia, we also talk about that in the Goss. So these episodes are specifically designed to try and give you content about many different topics where we're obviously speaking in English and there are multiple people having a natural and spontaneous conversation in English. So it is particularly good to improve your listening skills. In order to complement that though, I really recommend that you join the podcast membership or the academy membership at aussieenglish.com.au, where you will get access to the full transcripts of these episodes, the PDFs, the downloads, and you can also use the online PDF reader to read and listen at the same time. Okay, so if you really want to improve your listening skills fast, get the transcript, listen and read at the same time, keep practicing, and that is the quickest way to level up your English. Anyway, I've been rabbiting on a bit. I've been talking a bit. Let's just get into this episode, guys. Smack the bird, and let's get into it. Dad, what's going on?
Eels.
Eels. Have you ever eaten eel?
I have.
I don't think I ever have. Is it any good? Just fish?
It's fish, but it's it's sort of oily and it's a weird one because it's a strong taste but not an offensive one. Mm-hmm. But they're very oily.
I always remember every time someone talks about eating eel, I remember that Friends episode. Do you know which one I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Unagi.
Yes.
I think it's where Ross is like obsessed with eel sushi or something, and he keeps saying like unagi. And then Rachel comes in and is like, salmon skin roll. Yeah. Just making fun of him. Anyway, so we got this story here. Freshwater eel research by Arthur Ryler Institute reveals marathon journey to the Coral Sea to breed. So I love these sort of opening lines in articles.
Yes.
How far would you be willing to wander for a date? Probably not as far as this aquatic animal.
Depends on how attractive the date was.
Well, I was thinking I met my wife through the internet and she was more than 3,000 kilometres away.
Yeah. She was around about the same place that these eels go to.
Yeah, the Coral Sea, right? Yeah, so she was in Townsville. Long and short-finned eels travel more than 3,000 kilometres from waterways across Victoria to the Coral Sea, and for the first time, researchers have been able to officially pinpoint where the eels breed. Scientists hoped a better understanding of migratory patterns would help reverse the species' declining population. The recent discovery came amid a research project. 20 transmitters were attached to freshwater eels in 2019 at the start of the project, and the tagged eels were tracked over the course of 5 months and were seen moving all the way from southwest Victoria to the Coral Sea near New Caledonia. So that is off the coast of
the
Cairns.
North coast of Queensland.
Yeah, okay, so that's the Coral Sea off Cairns and Queensland there. There are so many things about this that blow my mind. Like, besides the fact that you have a small animal, well, at least like compared to us, right? A fish traveling that far to breed. I always love thinking about like, how the fuck did this evolve?
I know.
How the fuck did you have an eel that obviously
migrating animals?
You would think the thing originally evolved in the ocean then and was laying eggs in the ocean somewhere, maybe around the Coral Sea, and somehow they've traveled all the way, somewhere and found a freshwater stream or something to go up to then live its life, and then they have to go all the way back home. But it's like, and that's insane for them to actually have to transition from saltwater,
change their physiology completely.
Yeah, to be able to manage the lack of salt in freshwater and then go back and forth like salmon, right?
Yeah.
And not only that, but they somehow end up with these huge distances because you're kind of like, okay, I could get it if it was the Coral Sea and then they end up in some river outside of Cairns.
Yeah, right.
Like 2
around the ocean,
away.
Just head west until we get to a freshwater gradient, and then we just follow this gradient up into a freshwater stream.
But you're like, how the hell do these things not get picked off?
Yeah.
Like, I feel like if I were to try
why aren't they in Sydney?
Yeah.
Well, they're in southwest Victoria. Why aren't they in southeast Victoria?
Yeah,
Well, we have plenty of rivers, but they're not. So maybe they were hundreds of years ago.
Yeah. Well, they could have been hunted out by the indigenous people who
they could have been
ate a lot of them.
They did,
and that was the other part of the story. But yeah, it just that aspect of migratory animals always blow my mind because there are so many aspects to it. Often they're changing environments completely. There's how do they navigate from one place to the other, and also what are the triggers?
Well, that was what this research was about. Is what are the cues that say it's time for you to leave your freshwater environment and swim 3,000 kilometres to breed. And I'm assuming I'm not a fish biologist, but I think I know enough about this species.
Is it ichthyologist?
Ichthyologist, very good. I think that they only breed once. That these adults will swim out of the Hopkins River and out into the ocean at Warrnambool and end up all the way up the east coast of Australia and out into the Coral Sea. They will breed out there, and then the elvers, the little baby eels, will, at some stage during their life cycle, wind their way back and find themselves, back in the rivers in southwest Victoria.
Only to be eaten by someone.
Yeah, well, they'll be eaten a long way along the way, but and they'll stay there for the rest of their lives until they are mature enough, and then they get this signal that says, there's a flood here or whatever. And I think that was the finding of this article was that
seasonal changes.
The seasonal changes, but how do you? I don't think they're 1 year old when they go. They're probably there for 10 years by the time they grow up and go, all right, it's time to go. When do we go? When there's a flood, which makes perfect sense when you get that, because you don't want to be trying to make your way through shallow water that's not moving.
I guess it'd be associated with the La Nina too, right?
Yeah. And it may well have something to do with water temperatures in the Coral Sea, and they're clearly not going to know what that is, but they go, oh, this is a good thing to move now because La Nina is here, and that means there are changes in weather patterns and so on. It probably means there are changes in currents, so it's easier to swim north because the majority of the currents in eastern Australia are going south. So all of that stuff is probably tied up, and they end up there. But the interesting part, I think, is the physiology. How do you go from being a little baby fish out in the marine environment and then decide, no, I'm going to swim up a freshwater stream and completely flip my physiology? Because the basic problem is to do with water and salt moving across your skin surface. So obviously in a marine environment, you've got the concentration of salts outside your body is higher. So you're losing water constantly and gaining salt, and you've got to have a way of getting rid of the salt and retaining water. And then you switch it over and you into fresh water as a fish. Your concentration of salts inside your body is higher. So you're absorbing water and you've got
to get rid of it
and
even
losing
quicker.
salt. So that physiology switch is just bizarre.
What does it say here? The process is called osmosis, right? Regulating the amount of water on either side of a cell membrane so that it's effectively equal based on the concentrations, right? But two organs do the work of shuttling salt ions in and out of a fish's bodies to counteract osmosis: the gills and the kidneys. Saltwater fish need to take in water to replenish the fluids in their bodies, but that means they're also taking
in salt, so they've got to get rid of it.
Yeah, so that was the little snippet here from one of these articles, but I'm not sure. I guess that would mean that they just have either the gills or the kidneys changing the way in which they deal with these salt ions,
probably a developmental
pumping them out or moving them
in their as they're aging that changes their physiology. But that in itself is interesting.
Well, and how do you suddenly change it if you're an adult, you've grown, and then you suddenly decide to go back into the salt water, right? You've been in fresh water for decades. That must be a shock. But I would love to know how the hell they get the trigger of we need to go, but then how do they know where to go?
Decide that they've all got to swim northeast.
And what are you following? The stars, the moon,
who knows?
Like magnetic fields.
And yet the evolution of those migratory patterns is sort of really interesting because clearly there is something about that southern Pacific Ocean that it'll be environmental as to right amount of food available, water temperature, and all those sort of things to breed. But there are plenty other freshwater fish in those rivers that breed in that fresh water in that temperature.
Yeah.
Why does this particular species need to do that?
Well, and that's where I would say, as an evolutionary biologist, evolution isn't about finding the most efficient thing, but it's about using
Making
what
the
works.
most of what you've got.
And so,
Yeah.
obviously, if they're already able to breed readily in the Coral Sea and physically they can make that distance and travel that distance, then they're going to do it, as opposed to... And there's no evolutionary pressure, if they're able to do that easily, for them to find somewhere else locally to breed. Obviously, if they were to randomly stumble upon that, then that population would be at a great advantage of like, well, we just lay our eggs right here.
Evolution hasn't created enough. Well, there haven't been mutations to allow them to do that yet.
Yeah.
That have been exposed to the selective pressures.
Yeah,
so.
because there must be huge things too. Perhaps there's much higher a hurdle evolutionarily for them to be able to evolve eggs that can handle fresh water compared to salt water.
Yeah.
And that's, how would you'd have to be living somewhere where there is constant fluctuations in salt levels, right, from freshwater to saltwater, for there to be an evolution of eggs that could then handle
so
less and less
environments.
Yeah,
and look, who knows? Maybe and these are reasonably ancient animals.
Yeah.
So maybe over a period of 100 million years, there have been sufficient changes in water temperature, as an example, that they used to be able to do it from just, travel from our freshwater thing, just whip out into the ocean for, lay your eggs, and then and then you're gone. And then when you're babies, you go, this is all right, but we'd be better off up that freshwater stream.
How do we get away from the predators?
Exactly, we head up there. But that then just became impossible with, the waters cooling in the Southern Ocean and so on. So who knows? I mean, that's quite possibly the way it goes. But it's a bizarre one from that sense, because most other migratory animals are migrating to retain a constant environment.
Yeah.
Rather than
so they change the
deliberately
season. They're
change.
like, oh, shit, this place is going to winter, so we need to go somewhere else where it's going to be warm.
We go to the continuous summer.
Yeah.
And we have migratory shorebirds that come to they come to all over Australia. Come to Australia that come from Siberia and Alaska.
How many millions of years it's been since they've seen winter?
Yeah, well, exactly.
Because they're just constantly chasing summer, right?
They in the case of some of our shorebirds, they come to Australia for our summer to feed, and they breed in the northern hemisphere in Siberia and Alaska. Other birds, like our shearwaters, the mutton birds, do the reverse. They come to Australia to breed, and then they just go up to the northern hemisphere in their summer to feed.
And for each, you would probably think, if you guys wanted, there would probably be somewhere for you to both breed and eat.
Yeah, just hang around in the tropics.
Yeah. There's surely got to be somewhere closer by that you can eat or mate.
Yeah,
that is amenable.
Although in the case of, say, the shorebirds, and for pelagic birds like shearwaters as well, they're eating specific things that are, in the case of shorebirds, in sandflats and mudflats that only occur in cool, temperate environments.
Yeah.
So they're restricted to eating in those environments. Those sort of things just simply don't occur in the tropics. And so you get those environments, but the food is different. And so they go through, have a bit, I don't like this, keep going south.
Yeah.
And the same thing, I suspect, for the pelagic birds like shearwaters, where they're feeding on fish at sea, and they've evolved to feed on cool, temperate fish.
Yeah.
So, or even, in the case of moving to the Arctic, cold water fish. But it's bizarre.
Back to the eels, though, it was really cool reading about the indigenous people. So the importance food source for okay.
It's a badly written article.
It may be important food source for First Nations. The research is in collaboration with the region's traditional custodians, the Gunditjmara people, and that's spelled Gunditjmara. If you guys want to check it out. So Gunditjmara Man and World Heritage Park Ranger at Gunditj Meering Traditional Owners Aboriginal Corporation, Tyson Lovett Murray, said it can be overstated how culturally significant the eels were to the southwest Victorian Indigenous people. Traditionally,
it can't be overstated.
Yeah, sorry, it can't be. It can't be. Traditionally, for thousands of years, it was a food source and led to the Gunditjmara community engineering a really big landscape around short-finned eels.
Yeah.
There are 350 recorded stone house sites on the cultural landscape, and they're all attached to huge swamps that were formed by the eruption of Burj Bim, formerly known as Mount Eccles.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's this cool place, right, where it's interesting.
Southwestern Victoria.
Yeah, I'd have to learn more about the stone houses, but looking them up, they create these kind of like ring stone walls that are a few feet high, maybe 1.5, 2 feet high, and then they have a sort of timber branch structure over the top with bark, so that they can obviously live in these sort of small houses. And I wonder if the rocks stay there permanently and they can just come back with wood.
I suspect so.
And just recreate them each season.
But they also used to build eel traps.
Yeah,
so
when they come
build
to build
stone walls inside the stream.
Yeah.
Which narrows the stream width, and then they used to build little wooden fish traps, and they would set them in the narrow gaps that they'd built.
When these things look like a sock, right? A long sock that would be made out of reeds or something that would have the water funneled, that would obviously allow the water to go in and through it, but the eel would get stuck.
The eel get stuck, yeah. So they'd capture these eels as they were heading downstream.
And that was about as advanced agriculturally as the Indigenous Australians got, right? Down here in southwest Victoria, which is something we should probably be proud of geographically, that they created these stone complexes, these structures that obviously were used by generation after generation. I think we did an article on this a while back that dated back to at least 7,000 or 8,000 years. Right?
Or 30,000 years.
Oh, was it even longer than that? Jesus,
well,
okay.
Certainly not necessarily the building of eel traps, but...
no, the stone structures.
But the people living around Lake Conda, I think, or what we call Lake Conda. I can't remember the Indigenous name for it, but there have been continuous occupation of that land for about 30,000 years.
Yeah, it's definitely thousands of years. I'm not sure exactly how long, but yeah, at this area, some of the things have been radiocarbon dated to 7,000 years.
Yeah, and it will be around that 6,000 to 7,000 years because that's that they would have been trapping fish because that's when the land bridge was created between Victoria and Tasmania.
Yeah.
Which meant that, or disappeared, from between Victoria and Tasmania.
True.
Which meant that we then had the shallow water Bass Strait that would have allowed those fish migrations to occur because before that, that area wouldn't have had the same level of estuarine environments to have those fish in it.
It's crazy to think that Port Phillip Bay was originally just this massive green...
It's the Yarra River. Yeah.
What would it have been? Like an outlet of the Yarra Reef floodplain with loads of kangaroos and it would have been like a hunting ground,
a huge
floodplain.
So,
and it would have been crazy to think that there were probably people who migrated across from mainland Australia to Tasmania across that land bridge, obviously if they had gotten there in the first place. But
exactly.
You wonder if they did that seasonally, or had connections and... The number of places that must have had Indigenous people living there that are now underwater. You're kind of it's sad that we won't probably ever know about all these locations that they would have frequented to hunt, to live, to love, to do all of those things.
And look, there are other migration things around that Bass Strait migration, where you look at it now, if we have birds that... overwinter in Victoria that breed in summer in Tasmania.
Well, these are swift parrots?
Swift parrots, orange-bellied parrots. We have a lot of little tiny birds, little tiny bush birds that come from Tasmania in north to Victoria in the winter because it's just too cold for them, obviously, in Tasmania.
You would guess that would have evolved.
And that would have evolved because they clearly would have just migrated up and down the coastline.
Yeah, through
or across the bush.
The land that was there originally.
And then, over a period of a few hundred years.
Became islands.
It became islands and then it just became sea. And so now we have these birds that have to migrate across some of the most dangerous sea in the world from a point of view of storms and things because it's stuck out into the Southern Ocean, but it's shallow water. So you get these storms and really big waves and all sorts of things in Bass Strait. But these little birds flying across it, and you go, surely you can find somewhere in northern Tasmania, but it's just this evolutionary pressure that for tens or hundreds of thousands of years, their ancestors have just flown that far north and they keep doing it, even though now they have to fly 150 kilometres across the sea.
Yeah.
They might stop at King Island for a while, but, it's it's a bizarre one, but it's that evolutionary pressure of we've always done this, so we will keep doing it.
Well, and it's working.
Yeah.
We're still alive.
Well, it works until you get to the point that like swift parrots and orange-bellied parrots are two of the most endangered bird species in Australia. And part of that reason is, I suspect, is that they actually struggle with this migration. Now, there's a whole lot of environmental reasons of environmental destruction, habitat destruction that means that they no longer have places to feed when they get here.
Already on the edge,
exactly.
Then destroying the habitat that either they nest in or eat in is going to push them over. Well, that was a good episode. Just a quickie. Anything else to say?
No, having a drink. Sorry, you caught me with my mouth full.
With your pants down.
Metaphorically.
All right, well, thanks for hanging out, guys, and we'll chat to you next time.
Ciao.
See ya.